And first in house, how's it going? Good morning, all. I don't know what's going on here, but I'm not getting. Oh, there we go. People are coming in. People are coming in. I'm getting the signal. I'm getting the feed. We're doing great. Well, I gotta say that it's nice and bright here in Montreal this morning. We got a maximum sunrise, and wait for it. Bitcoin's running. We're good, guys. All that's left for us to do is have a coffee and talk about what's new. So let me know if all of my streams are coming in correctly. I'm not sure what's up. Looks like I've got some kind of a pause, but we'll be okay. We'll be okay. As you know, we like to start every morning with the fakest news we can find, right? The fakest news. We got an amazing Moscow time today. It was better yesterday, but yesterday was one of the all-time Moscow times. I'm going to do my best to make it as good today as it was yesterday, though. We're just gonna get loosened up here with a bit of this Moscow time. So the first one I got is one moment. What does Bitcoin have to do with the technological singularity? We'll get to that. Onamu Robin. We'll get to that. We got to start with some Moscow time though. So Blinken, the Secretary of State, Blinken, right? What did Blinken have to say, right? Well, he's not so sure about what our major threats are in America. This is what he has to say. You can't have a hierarchy when assessing the threat of climate change versus nuclear war, guys. You can't. Like nuclear war, you don't want to put it above, right? We're not into hierarchies, right? Everyone's equal. All threats are equal. Everyone's equal. We got a bit of climate change, and we got some bees that are changing their migratory patterns. But nuclear war, we don't want to put it above. It's all the same, right? It's neutral threat levels, right? Neutral, the same threat level. Then I got this one here. Hold on. I got this one here. We're gonna do some real fun ones in a second. Of course, with Hunter Biden and his testimony. I got a whole collection of Trump ones today because there's way more on Trump's legal trouble than there is on Biden's. But this one's pretty good, right? So let's do the USA Today one yesterday about hurting Joe Biden's chances because of the legal troubles that he's in. USA Today modified the headlines. I'm going to give you the same story, new headline, new tweet that came with it. Trying to slime the president. Will GOP attacks on Hunter Biden hurt Joe Biden in 2024? Right? And here's the other. Here's the other one. Hunter Biden's foibles. Hunter Biden's foibles provide ammunition for Republicans who want to inflict harm on Joe Biden ahead of the 2024 presidential campaign. That's from USA Today. Aldous Huxley's ghost. We don't normally like to do punchlines, but Aldous Huxley's ghost put a good one in here, and he said, Hunter Biden's foibles, right? Sounds like Jeffrey Dahmer's unusual taste in cuisine. Pretty good. We got, I had another one here on Trump that was just amazing. Hold on. They came in slightly out of order today for some weird reason. I thought I did it right. Well, we got this one on the Atlantic Ocean, right? This is a good one before we get into the Trump ones, right? This one's pretty good. Remember we were talking about the UN climate chief, and he said, it's not global warming, it's global boiling, right? So climate change out, that didn't work, and then global warming didn't work, so now it's global boiling. And it looks like they've got the memo, MSNBC here. We've reached the boiling points part of our climate crisis, right? So climate crisis, it's all kinds of new words, right? You got to change it up. I had a really good one here on Joe Biden, but I guess we'll have to get back to it. I forget where it is. So there's some good ones on Trump, good ones on Hunter. It all came out of order. I don't understand what happened here. But here are the Trump ones, right? So I went on to MSNBC just to have a look, right? I said, they must have something on Hunter Biden and Devin Archer and all this stuff that went on with the president selling access through his son and all of these things, right? I went to see, maybe MSNBC was covering it. I got a big zero. There isn't anyone covering it. There's 0 stories. So what I did is, sometimes I do this for Moscow time. I just collect a whole compilation of MSNBC headlines on Trump, right? Before you get to an actual real story. There isn't one on Hunter, so it just goes on forever. You just keep scrolling and days go by and then the same Trump stories come. But let me just give you a little taste of what MSNBC readers are getting this morning, August 1st, 2023. This is what MSNBC readers are reading this morning, despite everything that happened yesterday, which we're going to talk about next. So here you go. Presidential candidates don't usually have to deal with questions about whether they'd issue pardons for a rival. As Steve Bannon writes, the GOP's 2024 race is different. Potential Trump pardons have become a key issue in the 2024 Republican primary. All right, it keeps going, guys. Why Trump's latest failed lawsuit against CNN matters. Donald Trump seems to think he can wage a legal war against independent news organizations. And as Steve Bannon writes, these efforts keep failing spectacularly. So this is Steve Bannon times 2, right? He's a real contributor to our Moscow time. We're not done. Did Yuscil Taveras, Mar-a-Lago's IT director, avoid charges in Jack Smith's classified documents case by ultimately coming clean? Why the target letter to an uncharged Mar-a-Lago employee matters. Why it matters. What happened at Mar-a-Lago, the IT guy. Here's another one. Of course, they have their podcast on MSNBC, which is just called Prosecuting Donald Trump, right? This is the podcast. In a new episode of Prosecuting Donald Trump, Judge Luttig joins someone Weissman and Mary McCord to discuss why he thinks Trump wants to be charged for January 6th and the fallout from that expected trial. Click here to listen, right? Remember what the formula is for these Trump stories? It's the what if Marvel universe, right? What if Trump what if inside the boxes there's a thing and he did some stuff? What if, right? So what if he thinks, right? So there's a bit of mind reading here, right? He thinks Trump wants to be charged. Why Trump wants to be charged for January 6th, but not the other ones, right? We're not done. This is a related to Trump because it's Giuliani, right? Rudy Giuliani, the former mayor of New York, caught up in the Trump thing. Georgia governor slams Giuliani over 2020 election falsehoods, right? The Georgia governor's denunciation of Giuliani rings hollow. Here's more. The fact that Donald Trump wants to fire Jack Smith is a problem, as Steve Bannon writes. The fact that he wants to see the special counsel in jail is a bigger problem. Trump talks of locking up special counsel Jack Smith. Here's another one, right? A national news story hiding in plain sight. What could it be? What could it be? A national news story hiding in plain sight? Are they going to talk about Hunter Biden on MSNBC? Are they going to tell them what's happening? Nope. Americans broadly are not happy with how. National story hiding in plain sight. This is from Rachel Maddow herself. This is from the queen of NBC herself. A national story hiding in plain sight. Americans broadly are not that unhappy with how things are being run right now. They're not that unhappy. They're okay with all this. They're good. No problem. Americans love it. Maddow reports an unusual new polling results regarding all 50 U.S. governors and how Joe Biden might be the connecting factor, right? So she's saying that all these governors, it's going great. And I will say it's, America has some good things going for it. We're going to talk about those. We're not done with Steve Bannon. He has more fake news. In 2019, Donald Trump wanted dirt on Joe Biden, so he thought the smart move would be to threaten aid to Ukraine. It led to his first impeachment. In 2023, as Steve Bannon writes, the Republicans are ready to do the same thing again, right? So there's another amazing Moscow time. Here's more. It's all coming together for a possible Georgia indictment of Trump for alleged 2020 election interference in the state, writes Jordan Rubin. This is all from today. We're ready to go. Fani Willis suggested the Trump investigation is complete. The statement comes after heightened security measures were put in place and many staffers advised to work remotely. right? Because there's going to be riots. There's going to be riots. Steve Bannon coming in again. As Justice Samuel Alito condemns criticisms of the Supreme Court's integrity, Steve Bannon writes that the far-right jurist also engages in antics that undermine the Supreme Court's integrity. He's terrible. I got more. Trump's Save America PAC reportedly spent more than $40 million on legal costs covering the defense of Trump and other implicated in ongoing investigations. Co-author of this reporting, Devlin Barnett, joins Morning Joe to discuss. I got more. I'm not done. Finally, Trump's legal turmoil just keeps getting worse. Trump's role and influence in the effort to destroy potentially incriminating evidence of interest to the federal grand jury is unmistakable. This is pretty good stuff. It's pretty good, right? So all of this happened yesterday, according to MSNBC. And again, could we find anything in there about Hunter and Hunter and Devin Archer and what happened with Ukraine? Not a word. Not a word. So some amazing things can be actually distilled from that. So first of all, what happened yesterday? So as we mentioned yesterday, there was a testimony that happened on the Hill in Washington, D.C. with Hunter Biden's business partner, Devin Archer. So what everyone was saying was Devin Archer has turned, right? He was going to start giving up the goods on the Bidens. Now, a few things happened yesterday that are really weird and not normal. So first of all, Devin Archer testified not under oath. Very uncommon, very weird, right? They also made it closed doors, so this isn't public. There will be a transcript, but we don't have video of this guy going on and all that stuff. And I would also like to mention, again, what happened over the weekend with the Department of Justice coming out on the weekend and saying, this guy's got to report to jail and all that. Now, as we said yesterday, that ended up getting fact-checked, right? Community Noted or whatever on Twitter, because this woman, Miranda Devine, wrote all about this saying, look, they're trying to get him in prison before he testifies, and that's what they're doing. And it's a really big problem. And then the Justice Department came out and said, no way are we telling him to go to prison right away. He's going to testify, no problem. This is totally normal business. But in the end, it's not normal to remind a court that this guy's going to go to jail. And what everyone is saying about it is that it was intimidation, right? It was intimidation. It was a way for the Department of Justice to say to this guy, if you don't, play ball the right way, you're going to be in trouble. You're going to have to go to jail. And what we ended up seeing was this weird circumstance where he goes behind closed doors, isn't under oath, but we still know what he says, right? So according to Kaneko the Great, this is what we found out yesterday. Vice President Joe Biden meeting Hunter Biden's foreign business partners, providing them with the illusion of access. So you're going to see the fake news today. Whenever they talk about this story, they always talk about, oh, no, it's true. For sure, Hunter Biden definitely had weird things that were going on, weird business partners, illegal stuff. And his dad definitely talked to them, right? Joe definitely talked to them, but it wasn't about business, right? Hunter was selling the illusion of influence over his father. It wasn't real. He didn't have real influence. It was the illusion of influence. Now, this talking point comes from Dan Goldman, who's the heir to the Levi Jeans fortune or something like that. And he's a real bootlicker, they say. That's what Glenn Greenwald says. So this guy, Dan Goldman, comes out at the thing and says, I just left the interview of Devin Archer, and I was the only member who stayed for the whole time. These are the facts. Archer testified that Joe Biden never discussed any business with Hunter and his associates. There was no bribe from Burisma to Joe or Hunter. This investigation has uncovered zero evidence connected to President Biden. In fact, the evidence is clear that President Biden had nothing to do with Hunter's businesses. The American people are tired of this wild goose chase. They're tired of the goose chase. It's terrible, right? So that's what he says. And here's what you need to know about Devin Goldman, according to Jeff Carlson. Goldman was the counsel for the House Democrats during Trump's first impeachment. That inquiry centered around Trump's call to Ukraine. Impeachment kept Trump from uncovering Biden's actions in Ukraine's actions that are now being disclosed, which explains Goldman's panic and lies, because everyone's picking up on his terrible body language today and how he was, sort of dancing out there and having trouble staying on point and on script. So everyone's sort of picking up on it today, the amount of meetings that he had, the number of times Joe Biden was with Hunter Biden on these calls. It looks like this guy did spill the beans and say, yeah, he did it. Now, you can see people are sort of moving the goalposts, let's say, right? So that's what this Dan Goldman ends up saying, right? And Colin Rugg sort of gives some context. He says, Democrat Representative Dan Goldman appears flustered after listening to Devin Archer's testimony as he tries covering for Biden family lies. Reporter, doesn't it contradict the president's statements that he never talked to Hunter's business associates? Goldman, I don't know what this comment is, and if we're gonna, well, I don't know. I don't think that that's what he said. He never said that he has never spoken to anyone, right? So he just isn't able to say the story and isn't able to get it right. I got one here where this illusion of evidence. Here's Byron York talking about it. This is from the New York Times, right? Democrats want to clear up any confusion. Hunter Biden was not selling access to his father, the vice president. He was selling the illusion of access, right? So a lot of people picking up on that line about illusion of access. Now you can also see the sort of shifting goalposts here, right? Like at first it was, oh, right, you can't do that. Right? You can't do that. You can't meet with someone and then say you are, definitely conducting business, right? You're allowed to meet with people. It's okay. And everyone's saying now that they just shifted the goalposts and that, obviously you can't do this. So here's the shifting goalposts one. This is from Kanakoa the Great, right? Joe Biden, August 2019. I have never discussed with my son or my brother or with anyone else anything having to do with their businesses, period. New York Times, July 2023. It has long been known that the elder Mr. Biden at times interacted with his son's business parties. It's long been known, right? It's long been known, right? Long, everyone's known it. So what we did find out, and this is the funny thing, you get all these people, we didn't find out anything like Dan Goldman. There's no evidence, right? Well, two people, I think, had it perfect. Dan Bongino said the following, right? Illusion of access is an even better grift. Here's what Dan Bongino said. The Democrats are correct. Outside of the bank records, the suspicious activity reports, the wire transfers, the private bank transactions, the LLCs, the texts, the emails, the WhatsApp messages, the photos of Joe with Hunter's business partners, the voicemails to his son, the two business partners saying Joe is the brand and the big guy and the chairman, the two whistleblowers' testimony, the recorded phone calls between Biden and Poroshenko, the video of Joe Biden bragging about firing the Ukrainian prosecutor, and Hunter's statements that he's giving his dad half his income. There is no evidence of Joe Biden being involved. And Joel Pollack says the same thing, right? All this dithering about Trump and documents while evidence of Joe Biden committing impeachable outright bribery has been hiding in plain sight for nearly a decade. And Democrats and the media, with very few exceptions, strained to look past it. Enough of them they knew for years. And indeed, so we found out that for sure this is happening. It's been happening for years. But what Joel said here is the most important feature, that this has been going on for years and people look past it. They strain to look past it, right? And indeed, that's, I think, what most people are maybe shocked by or maybe opening their eyes to. I think all of us here are some of the most informed people in the world, right? We've seen this coming for quite a while. And now that it's here, it's hitting like a ton of bricks. It's one of these things, again, that's just a lot to handle, a lot to process. Many people will not be able to process it, right? Many people will not be able to understand exactly what's going on here. And simply because the implications are just too massive, right? We have actual proof now that the Bidens sold access, that there is a crime family running U.S. politics. It's just a lot for people to handle. You had Byron Donalds putting things plainly for people, right? And I think these houses are a really good way of describing what the Bidens are up to. Because remember, Joe has been a public servant ostensibly since the 1970s. Now, I have no problem with public servants making a little money on the side, giving speeches and all this stuff, right? I don't want them to be living off of a $100,000 salary a year. And that's apparently what he's supposed to have made for all these years, $174,000. But Byron Donalds, who was supposed to to Bitcoin 2023 in Miami, but they had that vote on, I don't know, the debt ceiling or whatever, so he couldn't make it. But he's actually becoming really great, and I dealt a little bit with his staff, great people. And so Byron Donalds has a history on Wall Street working in this stuff. And he says the reason why Joe could buy these multi-million-dollar mansions is because Hunter got paid to sell the Biden name across the globe. Going back to my banking days, there's no way he's qualifying for loans to buy each of these $5 million homes while making the money that he made. So I think people are going to be able to use that as a pretty good example of what's going on. So the thing about this story in the end, right, and what we're learning about the job of the president and what we're learning about the reaction to it by the media are the most important pieces of this puzzle. And RFK had a really great tweet 2 days ago, or just yesterday, pardon me. Yeah, from the 31st. Yeah, he's got like 2 million views on it when I when I took these notes. And it comes down to the job of the president, and something that we've talked about here a few times, right? This illusion of access and what it means, right? Well, what does it even mean to be the president anymore when all this stuff is going on and president after president, except for Trump, have become way richer when they enter office, way richer when they leave office than when they enter office. You know, Trump is the only president to be much poorer, much poorer. I mean, he took a major financial hit in becoming the president of the United States because the media hated him so much that they did everything to destroy his brand. And I mean, he can't just be the old Donald Trump. There's no going back for him. He can't just go into like name licensing deals and stuff like that. Now, I think some people love him more than ever, but it's just a different business model. This old business model is broken and can't work because of what happened. But here's Robert Kennedy talking about the job of president, and we're going to talk a bit more about it. And remember what we've discussed here many times. The job of president is kind of a made-up one in a sense, in that there's no like guidebook, there's no instruction manual. There's a few guideposts in the Constitution, but not much, right? It really is sort of a job that is defined by how you practice it, right? And every time it's practiced differently in different generations, of course, one president will take a few cues from the last president, and the form and function of the office is sort of generational and has changed over generations. And John F. Kennedy, when he was president, did some amazing, innovative things, right? He had these regular TV addresses that people loved, and that was new for the medium. If you go back, Roosevelt, of course, Franklin Roosevelt, very proficient in the radio when that was a big thing. Trump, of course, so proficient in Twitter and just a different character. But the way people use the office, the way they exercise power in the office is not defined by any particular document or any user manual or anything like that. It really is just an organic thing that grew into what it is today. And the job that we see there today really came from World War II and the Cold War. And if you listen to this quote from John F. Kennedy, you'll find out that it actually came from the job that we understand as president today, right up until Obama, including Biden, probably not Trump, because Trump is, again, the only president to not start a foreign war while he was president. And here's what Kennedy says the president has become, right? And this is the hard part. This is the hard part. This is the part where Americans have to sort of break up with this idea of what America is, the president is, the leader of the free world. Remember this ridiculous title we've been talking about for a while, the leader of the free world, right? Oh, you're the leader of the free world. So this is what Kennedy has to say about the leader of the free world, right? He says, Joe Biden's illegal refusal to release the JFK assassination records and his reckless escalations in Ukraine remind us of New Orleans DA Jim Garrison's singularly insightful quote from his book, Heritage of Stone. Until the work of the Kennedy assassins is undone, presidents will come and go, but the warfare machine and its extensive intelligence tentacles, domestic as well as foreign, will remain in control. The assassination reduced the President of the United States to a transient official, a service of the warfare conglomerate. His assignment is to speak as often as possible about the nation's desire for peace, while he serves as a business agent with Congress for the military and their hardware manufacturers. Yikes. That's it. That's what's going on here. I think Robert Kennedy has sort of figured out what's happening. And if you take what Kennedy has said to be 100% true, which I do, this is exactly how I see the world. This is exactly why I predicted Kennedy would be a big deal. Remember, everything that I predicted about Kennedy, why we talk about Kennedy regularly on the show, why Kennedy came to Bitcoin 2023, because I was after him and I was telling other people, you got to get him and he's going to be the greatest Bitcoiner and we got to get him. I didn't know anything about Bitcoin for him, right? It wasn't even in the cards, not even close, not even in the cards. All I knew was that Bitcoin's story goes back to 1964. It goes back, 1971 is part of the story. It's actually, though, 1964. It actually begins with the deputization of the banking sector to look into protests around the Kennedy assassination and why are people protesting about Vietnam and what about Gulf of Tonkin, and look the other way and we got a new president and don't worry about it, things are going to be fine, right? That's where it comes from. We're just going to look into money and no one's going to be able to protest because we're going to follow the money, right? And you're going to be safe that way. Don't worry about it. So the warnings that Eisenhower gave about the military-industrial complex came real, in particular after they killed John F. Kennedy. And from then on, we have been living in this situation that Kennedy describes here. And again, it's one of the reasons why I was so into Trump the first time around. I knew he was going to break that mold. He was not going to be the same person. And my only instinct about how he would not be the same person is because he was incapable of self-censorship. He wouldn't be able to play on script. My feeling about Trump has always been that as an artist, he feels compelled to tell what's on his mind, to say what's on his mind, whether people like it or not. And his way of saying things also is typical of an artist. It's always interesting. We're going to talk about some of the interesting things Trump said, because even just he had a quote, and we're going to talk about at the end about ballot harvesting, right? Trump's quote about ballot harvesting yesterday, amazing. Like, it's just Trump in a nutshell. No one else would talk about it, and it's incredible. So Kennedy here saying, what I think a lot of people realize, and what Dems don't really understand. They haven't really opened their eyes to it. I think there's a lot of Republicans that haven't opened their eyes to it either, but that's what Trump did. Trump was a major break with reality for a lot of people. And it did lead a lot of people, patriotic Americans who love America, to understand that the America they love wasn't exactly the thing they loved and it had to change. And so that's why you get all these sort of people in the Trump camp, right? I think this is going to spread throughout the country, because here's a Scott Adams observation today, right? This is what he says about the half of the population dealing with this Devin Archer case, because the Devin Archer thing is catastrophic. You might hear fake news out there saying, "Oh, the news that he was selling the illusion and he didn't say anything and it was closed doors." It doesn't matter. It's over for this guy. He ain't going to be able to make it out of this. There's now impeachment stuff, and here's what happens: they have enough now. Republicans have enough to go to the White House and ask for a deposition from the president. That is now on the table. You're going to see Jim Jordan in the next few days. You're going to see congressional Republicans go to the White House and get a deposition from the brain dead guy who's the president. And nobody can help him in that situation. He's a lot of lawyer, of course, but this will be a real thing, right? The cameras aren't going to be rolling, but they're going to get the statement. They're going to get the statement. He's going to have to lie. And they're going to proceed with impeachment immediately. You had Rep. Luna yesterday talking about why it's important to impeach now. So this impeachment is coming. It should be here by September-ish. I can't imagine this taking much longer than that. And there'll be no more suppressing this story. So again, why I predicted a few days ago that Biden ain't going to make it. He ain't going to make it to Thanksgiving, guys. That's the end of this guy. So that's what I think anyway. We'll see. I could be wrong. So this idea of the ignorance of half the population, like I said, I just went on MSNBC. If you listen to Glenn Greenwald and you listen to all these other people, you'll understand that the Operation Mockingbird has put the tentacles that RFK was referring to, the national intelligence, security intelligence, the long arm of the U.S. military-industrial complex, have been influencing American news media since the time of JFK's assassination, probably earlier. And like that, one of the reasons why I did the MSNBC exercise, which we've done before, of just taking their Trump headlines for the day and contrasting them with any other headline, you can tell immediately these people have an agenda, obviously, and are purposefully manipulating events. And Scott Adams says the following: "My condolences to the half of the country that doesn't know the biggest story in American politics by far broke today. This is what they prepped you for. It worked." Right? So that half the people don't even know this is happening is absolutely a way of manipulating folks and pushing them into this thing, right? And even just look at the contrast, right? Just the idea of all of these things like Dan Bongino just mentioned, right? And if it wasn't for the FISA acts and the bank statements and the whistleblowers and the this and the that, right, we wouldn't know. And then you contrast it with what MSNBC is going on, right? What about the boxes and the newspaper clippings in the boxes? And what about the attack plans that you never heard about and won't hear about and no one will show you and no one is talking about and no one knows what's really in there, right? The whole thing, of course, about why the boxes hoax is so good is because you can just imagine what's in them. What's in them? What's in the boxes? We don't know what's in the boxes, right? So, but here's what it ends up doing, and this comes from Vivek Ramaswamy, who has that same Trump ability of saying things that don't quite light your brain on fire, but that are clear and direct, and you can't stop looking at it, right? So this is what he says. He called everything to do with this manipulation of the media and the constant lying. He called it psychological slavery. When you fall into a trap of only seeing the world in terms of, oh, we're going to burn in global warming, oh my God, it's the end of the world, global warming, or there's a white supremacist under every bed waiting to get you and they're going to kill you because that's the major problem in America. It's the white supremacists, right? So it's the white supremacists, it's the systemic racism, which I believe, and there is such a thing as systemic racism, we can't deny it. But imagine if your frame for the world where we do have systemic racism only divided people into oppressors or victims, right? Like you're either one or the other. You're a victim or you're an oppressor, right? Not really a good deal, right? Now, I agree there is systemic racism, but would you characterize the entire country as being caught up in this binary of oppressor and victim? Not exactly. Like, I think you have a lot of people who, I'd say the vast majority of Americans want systemic racism gone. I want the education system wiped out in America, wiped out, right? And that's what Vivek also said. He says, I don't trust the media or their distillations, period. But it's our job to see the forest through the trees, the root of the problem. So here's Vivek explaining why people can't even read the news. And he's not saying even that the problem with the news is the manipulation. It's that people are too stupid in the first place because of the systemic racism in the education system. He's saying the root problem, the U.S. Department of Education is foisting divisive racial and gender ideology on our kids. End it. Shut down the Department of Education. Reallocate workforce training to the Department of Labor, plus loan collection to the Treasury Department. This isn't a slogan. It's a reality when I'm president. So going super hard here on that issue of education and actual systemic racism, right? I 100% believe that the systemic racism in America is a major problem, a real problem, but it's from the education system. It's not like Donald Trump and his friends, right? It's the education system. And so you have this situation in America where, you know, they have this quote, I guess, from, what's her name? The Vice President Kamala Harris, right? Kamala Harris yesterday in the news going on about the end of the world because of global warming, right? This big, long crybaby quote that she had about, oh, it's going to be so hard. And I understand why people are having so much trouble, the anxiety. Well, where do they get the anxiety? Listen to one lecture or one class for little children, and it's all about this stuff, the end of the world and the global warming and this and that. So we are in a world currently where we wonder why the mental health of a huge portion of the population, mostly Democrats, frankly, mostly Democrats, are having this kind of trouble. Do you think it's Trump supporters out there with like mental health troubles around global warming and anxiety around white supremacists and all these things? No. Is it Bitcoiners out there that have all this anxiety about global warming and white supremacy? No, right? There's only one group of people suffering from global warming anxiety and the belief that there are white supremacists under their bed and that the whole thing, the whole world is systemic racism and you can't get out of it, right? And you wonder why these people have mental health issues, right? It's a big mystery why all this mental health trouble is happening in America. Well, if you go by what, and this is RFK's sort of path to victory that he calls it, right? What is his path to victory? He said it a few times. I'm just going to tell the truth. That's it. That's his whole thing. This is his whole plan, right? How do you bring Americans together and fix the mental health crisis? Stop lying to them. It couldn't be simpler. I never had it down that simple as RFK got it, right? And he's right. Literally, that's all it takes at this point is to just tell the truth and stop lying and stop spinning people. Now, it can't happen, of course. We see why it can't happen, right? We have this stunning news. We have a system that still can't deal with the contrast, right? They impeached Donald Trump out of a 20-minute phone call, a perfect phone call, as he called it, right? And remember the meeting Don Jr. took with a Russian nobody in the Trump Tower? We heard about that shit for 4 years, right? Now we got Joe Biden at dinners with widows who give millions of dollars to his son and nothing, right? So we are now, without any question, living in the world that RFK has described here and that others have for a long time suspected we live in. But as of yesterday, there is no longer any question, right? MSNBC is an arm of national intelligence. NBC is probably with it. The New York Times, all of these folks actually sing off of a songbook written by arms makers. And this is the world we live in, right? This is America. This is it. And it ain't pretty. And the good news, though, is that you get Vivek saying things like this, right? You get some people understanding where this mystery of mental health is now coming from, right? And you're able to now, I think anyway, see the battlefield clearly where we couldn't before. So this is in 5G warfare, of course, where the whole destabilizing aspect, and we've talked about Michael Flynn's book many times about 5G warfare. Remember, you don't really know where the psychological manipulations are coming from, right? That's the hard part of 5G warfare. But it looks like now we finally have footing. We're starting to clear the fog. We're starting to understand the battlefield much, much better. And at this point, there is little way to deny, and even the apologists for the Hunter Bidens and the national security apparatus and the deep state, they're running out of shields, let's say, right? The ability to protect against this stuff is going down. And now we're moving into a world where things, I think, are going to change really quickly. So here's an amazing, simulation wink or turning of the tide, or once you get all this stuff being discussed, right? At the same time, the person most responsible for the 2020 win by the Democrats, right? The 2020 win by Hunter Biden, or by Joe Biden in the US presidential election. The man most responsible for that, if you didn't know who it was, let me tell you. This is the way that Joe Biden legitimately won the 2020 election. They did so much legal changes in the summer of 2020 to get the ballots out and to get mail-in voting because of COVID that the system was so changed across the nation. That's why you saw the big spike jump in votes that happened on election night. Now, the timing of it was sketch and all that, but I could see why Joe Biden, according to the rules in 2020, was able to actually have legitimate votes that came in from all this paper balloting. It was a guy named Mark Elias. That's his name. But things haven't worked so well for Mark Elias. Here's what's going on. Clinton General Counsel Mark Elias this is from Jonathan Turley, if you don't follow Jonathan Turley for legal advice, he's a legal prof, you got to. He's just the best, right? Clinton General Counsel Mark Elias has long carried more baggage than Amtrak from the Russian collusion claims to gerrymandering efforts. In April, the DNC dropped Elias. Now the Biden campaign has also done so. Elias has been sanctioned in the courts, accused of lying to the media and engaging in gerrymandering. The Clinton campaign was fined by the FEC over the hiding of the funding of the Steele dossier as legal expenses. So he was behind that too, right? Yet someone from DCCC was something like that still retain allies. A Republican group recently filed new alleged violations with the FEC. So this guy's getting pushed out. Now, what's happening simultaneous to that is Trump goes on yesterday, on Saturday night. And this was the Erie, Pennsylvania thing I was telling you about. That was electric and great. So Trump comes out and says the following about his competitors and Vivek and everyone else running for. He goes, they should all just quit and give all their money to the largest ballot harvesting operation in the history of mankind. So it's not just that he's saying, oh yeah, we gotta get out there and do some ballot harvesting like the no. He does it the Trump way, which is everyone drop out, right? Which is already like, what? Give me your money, right? And we're gonna do the biggest whatever, right? You gotta love it. You gotta love that kind of humor. Only he can do that kind of a thing, right? It's not even like, let's ballot harvest too, rah, rah, rah. Nope. Everyone quit. Give me your money. It's going to be the biggest ever, right? But his plan could work. I mean, it really could. That's what has to happen. Here's Jack Posobiec saying, Trump calls on all Republican challengers to drop out of the primary and their funds be used to finance the largest ballot harvesting operation the world has ever seen. So you get the Dems losing their main ballot harvesting, schemer, right? And he looks really good at his job. If you look at this guy talk, you're gonna, if you're in the market for a really sketchy lawyer who's a good lawyer, I bet, right? But because he does the sketchy stuff, this is your guy, right? He needs a job. If you need a sketchy lawyer, right? If you're Richard Hart or someone and you need a wicked sketchy lawyer, here's a guy. Here's a guy for you. This guy knows what he's doing. So that's great news, right? That's great news. Now, at the same time, you have the news service, right? Let's say New York Times, now trying to pump a new worry out there. So the New York Times, it looks like they're losing their ability to monopolize the airwaves and brainwash and create mental health trouble in as many people as they'd like. And they wrote an article yesterday on Elon Musk's unmatched power in the stars, talking about the amount of satellites he's put up. I'm a Starlink user myself at the farm, so we love the Starlink. It works great, right? And now their problem here is that one man controls more than half of the satellites on Earth, and Democrats in the article are worried that he might use this constellation of communication to provide global free speech outside of their control, because they don't have spaceships to go knock out his, New York Times isn't in the spaceship business, right? Luckily, Elon Musk is in the spaceship business, and he is in the internet from space business. And luckily, we have internet from space now. And indeed, it is really tough to suppress. They managed to take the X off the building in San Francisco, by the way. So the X is gone. They can't clean up shit on the streets in San Francisco, but they got the X off that building, so it's out. By the way, Elon Musk's rebrand to X is probably the most successful rebrand in the history of rebrands. Like, it's all anyone talks about, right? It doesn't matter if you like it or not. I'm just talking about, like, did you hear? Did you hear? So a real thing. At the same time, yesterday, Elon Musk and Twitter have begun to sue these fact-checking organizations. So they got the space satellites. So it doesn't look like we're going to be losing our freedom of speech, right? It looks like we're going to be able to at least have a network, and it'll mean a lot for anyone who needs propagation of information. We got the satellites, right? It's excellent. So the case that they have, the case that X has brought forward, Twitter has brought forward, is going to be on the Center for Countering Digital Hate, which is how this information laundering, suppression of news, really how the mental health crisis in America has been so long coming and so sustainable, right? The sustainability of the mental health crisis in America is because of organizations like this. And the Center for the Countering of Digital Hate is now going to get sued by Twitter. So they wrote a blog post today saying, protecting the public's right to free expression. On X, people are free to be their true selves. We believe people of all backgrounds and beliefs should have the right to freely express themselves so long as they do so within the bounds of the law. Free expression is fundamental to a healthy, functioning global society, and it's taken away. And if it's taken away, it's almost impossible to get back. That's why we will continue to stand up for people's rights, including over 500 million passionate users who turn to our platform daily. So now they're going to sue these guys, right? And the legal claim, right? That's why the legal claim against CCDH, the Center for, again, whatever it's called, Countering Digital Hate. X not only rejects all claims made by the Center for Countering Digital Hate, but through our own investigation, we have identified several ways in which the Center for Countering Digital Hate is actively working to prevent free expression. That includes targeting people on all platforms who speak about issues the CCDH doesn't agree with, attempting to coerce the deplatforming of users whose views do not conform to the CCDH's ideological agenda, targeting free speech organizations by focusing on their revenue stream to remove free services for people, and attempting to illegally gain unauthorized access to social media platform and data and to misuse that data. So he's also suing them because they were doing some scraping of the data that people have been doing for AI training on Twitter. So he's getting them on that as well. So bad news, I'd say, for the industrial censorship complex. And if that's not bad enough, Vivek was on Timcast yesterday on Tim Pool's show, talking about, I think, what's most important in this discussion and really the Bitcoin angle here. Which is, of course, we understand, right? And it's the reason why I'm a one-issue voter, and the reason why my one-issue vote remains with Bobby Kennedy for now. And I love Bobby Kennedy. I'm not like threatening to take away the vote. I'm a one-issue voter, but Vivek here making a strong play, really strong, if you're a one-issue voter like myself. Because inevitably, what funds the industrial war machine, what it funds the industrial censorship machine, is the lack of accountability in money, right? Who pays for all this stuff? The result of this is you get censorship people in charge of free speech, you get unhealthy people in charge of your health, you get poor people in charge of wealth, you get you get the opposite of what you intend when you don't actually have a accountability system that is money, right? Money in, money out, that makes sense. We don't have any sense of money in our bureaucratic system and all that, because it still is coming from the logic of World War II debt issuance and public finances, which can be completely manipulated by exactly what we're talking about here, the media. And because the money and the feedback loops and the incentive systems are all lost on people, we think that we just hope that everyone's just being nice and everyone's looking out for us. And it's not true, right? So here's what Vivek says, right? And I think Vivek has talked about doing this throughout the federal government. But this is the answer, right? I will reduce headcount at the U.S. Federal Reserve by over 90% and limit its scope to doing exactly one thing: stabilize the dollar as a stable unit of measurement. That's it. I'll make the 2024 election a referendum on the Fed and put the beast back in the cage. Now, will this work? I think so, right? But how do you stabilize the dollar? Well, I got a few ideas. Bobby Kennedy's got a few ideas, right? And I think Vivek is smart enough to know what will work to stabilize the dollar. So the good news is, right, we got election gerrymandering going on big time. We got people talking about destabilizing or stabilizing the dollar and destabilizing the Federal Reserve. We get the actual heir to the Kennedy world running for president, saying we haven't had a president since my uncle and Donald Trump himself. And if we keep on this path, we're not going to have one. So it's kind of a return to the king, right? Today I used the Lord of the Rings third book title, The Return of the King, and I changed it to The Return of the President, and I put JFK up there, dressed as the actual king of Gondor, not the steward of the Gondolar, which is what I've called Biden for a long time, right? The steward of the Gondolar. We have the return of the king of Gondor impending, right? The Democrats have lost their Mr. Elias. He was the one who won them that election, right? That was him. A lot of people knew this from the beginning. As someone who takes special interest in gerrymandering, I was very impressed with his work over the summer and of 2020, because a lot of that happened in the wake of COVID. And he went from state department to state department manipulating voter systems and all that. And he was very successful, right? Which is why I was very quick to admit that that Joe Biden won the election in 2020, because I could see the rules changing, and which is why I was talking about it being a hung election and no results coming. I was talking about that from at least August of 2020, that there would be no clear winner of the election and it was going to be a scam and we would end up in this situation that we're in today. So there you go. All right. Let's see what the comments are. Good here. Isn't it amazing? Recently, an emoji was judged as an agreement, but people meeting in the same room texting messages are an illusion. Yeah. I dated them since you might want to be covering for what you said in the past. And going, yeah, to the enemy using randoms. I don't know what that is. Tyler. So it was a hologram of Biden that Miss Lardy Black fast. Yeah. I don't know what's going on in Tyler here. Sorry, Tyler. I don't know. I can't read all these comments, man. All right. Tommy, how can they not talk about Biden getting impeached? That's the biggest news in the world. Exactly. I mean, he's getting impeached. I don't think there's any way around it. It's going to be an interesting story. It's going to be fun to watch. What did I say was going to be the best thing about this summer and going next year? A lot of entertaining stuff. We're going to find out nothing but amazing things. We're going to actually get real definitive proof about JFK and all of this stuff, right? And honestly, I think this aliens thing was possibly the biggest red pill, orange pill, white pill, whatever you want to call it, right? Because even low information voting Democrats, right? The so-called smart, credential-filled, but low information Democrats, even they were like, aliens? What? Because it spills the beans on the whole thing being a scam, right? So very good that it happened. I'm very, very happy. I hate closed door meetings in Congress and how the Democrats run out with a weird screaming nothing burger and everyone printed it. Everyone printed it. That's when they will crash the market, making people worry about survival and not the Bidens. I hope not, Dan, but we'll see. Even if it's a huge story and lots came out in the meeting. They don't want to know. Save the banks, save the world. The Bitcoin path to victory is to tell the truth. It is. Yeah, that's it. It's that simple. I was actually shocked and floored when I read RFK. This is in early RFK days, right? When they said, how are you going to bring the nation together? And I was expecting one of these like highfalutin philosophical speeches, right? Because that, like, I'd been asking the question, how do you do it? It was the simplest answer: tell the truth. Stop lying. Right? Stop lying. Right? It couldn't have been simpler. He had it totally right. Totally right. Totally right. Good. Bitcoin tribe celebrates 1 day closer to hyper Bitcoinization. And that's what it feels like to me. That's what it's second. That's what it's. Certainly a good day. Yeah, Clout. I'm the same. Yeah, sorry, Tyler. I can't follow the same frame, and I don't have too much time. I got to read these quick. We got to entertain the people. We love entertaining. I saw hundreds of thousands of votes come off Trump's numbers. The same amount go on to Joe Biden. Not to mention they stopped the election, but he won without cheating. Well, look, a bowl of soda. The cheating was before. Like, do we need to catch them in the actual votes? It's a waste of time in a sense, right? Did they manipulate the actual rigs? Maybe. Like, I wouldn't be surprised at all if the machines were rigged and what you're saying is exactly true. But it was already manipulated before. There was already election interference every day from 2016 to 2020. Like, it doesn't matter about the votes, right? Voting doesn't matter. Now, all I mean to say is that it is possible, given the gerrymandering and the voting ballot harvesting, that he won. Like, you have to admit that it's at least a plausible scenario, and it's a waste to fight it. Like, it was influenced, it was manipulated, the election was unfair, the election was a scam, it was stolen. Like, all those things are true, but they can be true without having to prove that the votes were stolen, right? Now, one of the amazing things, and here's where I continue to say that what Trump did to the Republicans, Kennedy can do to the Democrats. And why that's so important? It's so important because of the following thing. When Trump won the Republican primaries, he brought in so many new people. And even in his general election, these aren't the same Republicans. These were new people that don't normally vote. Because what do they get in the American elections? Like, 100 and something million votes. It's not everybody, right? We're still only at 60 something percent, 60, 70%. Everyone's fighting over the 5% of voters, right? But if you come out and you generate interest in 10% of the population who never voted before, that completely unbalances the cheating. And that's what Kennedy can do. Kennedy can bring in brand new people who haven't voted before, that won't be part of any of these composite models and voter outreach and targeting systems. These are new people. And that's a very powerful thing, to bring in your own cohort of new people to a political party. That's one of the most amazing things Trump did to the Republicans, and it's what Kennedy can do to the Democrats, which is very destabilizing to their system, because they're used to fighting over the same people and brainwashing the same people. He can do more. So, a bowl of soda, look, it got you banned from doing what I do, talking on the internet to say that the voting systems were screwed up. So I kind of trained myself to not care, right? Now, if it comes out as true, yeah, I'm not going to be surprised. I'm not going to be like, whoa, I'm just not going to spend my time on it. I'm convinced the election was influenced in a scam from way before the actual votes, right? That didn't matter. It didn't matter. I was predicting what you saw by August. I was saying, no, there's not going to be a result. It's too scammy. There's no result coming, right? We're going to have two presidents, which is what we're at. If you go talk to any Trump supporters, if you go right into MAGA world, you will realize very quickly that they don't recognize Joe Biden as president. Donald Trump is their president. They call him the current president, that he won the election, and they go under that pretense. And that's fine with me, because that's what I said would happen. What I said would happen in the summer of 2020 is we were about to have two presidents, and the country would psychologically split. And every one of these two groups would recognize different authorities. And that Trump would go back to the winter White House, which is what his Mar-a-Lago was called, and he would rule from the winter White House, which is what he's done, right? And by rule, he just says crazy shit and gets a lot of attention, which we love, right? Yeah, curve crashing, huh? Isn't that that's the stablecoin one, right? That's the same. No, that's when ballots from being online with Ukraine during the vote shutdown at midnight and millions of more votes. Yeah. But again, like, I don't know where those votes came from, and I don't know anyone did. My understanding of what happened on the night of was that they had to dump them because Trump was winning the day of, and they didn't want it to change when people woke up. That convincing people that the mail-in ballots, the scammy ballots, were coming in over days was going to be too much of an argument, too much of an uphill argument. So they had to do it that night. So as I understand, their votes were real, but the timing was screwed up because they couldn't deal with him winning overnight. Now, I don't know, like that just seems like the most plausible to me. And I'm only just sort of guessing, right? I'm filling in the blanks with a narrative story. So I don't know the truth, but I don't need to know where the votes came from, and I don't need to know that it was a scam to move on with my life and accept the 2020 election as a complete fiasco, right? Which I do. Yeah, Tyler, we're into you, man. Just hard to, I can't follow such long threads, right? I just can't I can't follow such long threads. Can't read it all. Send me a note sometime though, Tyler. You can DM me on Twitter. Or ever spoken with Jack Cruz? No, I haven't. Capenta? No, I haven't. Morning, Brenda. Curve is under pressure on DeFi and is a big liquidity trading pair that is drying up right now. They are forced to sell Bitcoin for more Curve liquidity to avoid giant sell-off of Curve. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Semiconductor story. Yeah, I haven't been following it because I didn't think it was going anywhere. Yeah, Capenta. So pardon me, everyone. That's why I haven't been giving you updates on superconductor stories. I know enough about Korean academics and Sky. So if you guys don't know, I lived in Korea for a couple of years. Big fan of Korea, love Korea, speak a little Korean, can read and write Korean. Not well, but I know the alphabet, let's say, Hangul. They have a big history of academic scams. So I didn't trust it from the start. Now, I think Koreans can do all kinds of amazing, innovative things, but when I see it coming out of heavily scripted, this has happened before, right? They did this before. It's not the first time big things come out of Korean universities and then they're not that big, right? They're not that big at all. So there you go. Hoped it was true. And I mean, it looks like there's another one out there. There is someone who filed a patent in the past couple of weeks for these superconductors at room temperature stories, and they seem to have a legit thing. But I'll only follow it when I get a bit more proof. Oh yeah, exactly. The superconductor story looks like a monopole magnetic material. Yeah, that's why one side floats and the other doesn't. Exactly. Yeah, it's not. The thing was true, but not for the reasons they needed it to be true for the industrial benefits to be realized. That's my understanding. All right, team. That's all I got for today. What does this say? So Joe won the most votes ever with the smallest amount of counties won. Yeah, that future stacks. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Like all of the proof of this and that, it was an unprecedented election, and they just focused on which ones they knew they could manipulate. So it's the most votes. What you have to understand is, and this is the frame I always share for Bitcoiners, right? Bitcoiners understand the trade-off between convenience and credibility. They made it more convenient, but less credible. So, we understand that in the scaling of Bitcoin and the engineering of the network, but the same rules apply to a voting system. You don't get to choose credible and convenient. It's a trade-off, right, between credibility and convenience. And they chose convenience, and this is the result. So it's not credible, right? Joe had the most votes ever with the smallest amount of counties won. It's a fact, but not a credible one. It's like, how many transactions per minute are on some shit blockchain? It's a fact, right? But it's not real. It's just Curve churning shit. It's not real. It's not credible, right? It's not real transactions. It's a scam, right? So all I mean to say is that I don't waste a single moment considering the 2020 election irregularities from a voting point of view. I don't care. I've already accepted it as a scam. I accepted it as a scam from the Mueller report. That, for the Hunter Biden laptop, that was enough election interference for me to not have any credibility in the 2020 election. It's not credible to me. The voting system is incredible to me. I don't need to know more. I don't need to be like, well, they did it like this on this day with these things. Because the minute you do that, the minute you say, well, it was only in these counties that he won by, if you don't allow the possibility that the cheating worked, but the cheating was not exactly cheating, it was more scheming and scamming, then you'll see it a lot clearer, and you won't turn people off, right? So the main problem with trying to argue the vote and the elections is you don't have proof. You just don't, right? You can say, oh, it looks weird one night, different counties, but no one thinks that way. No one's going to be able to follow that argument. It's too complicated, right? Hunter Biden laptop illegally suppressed. Boom. You're done. You don't have to argue more than that, right? Not more than that. It's a waste of your time. Now, of course, the truth matters and blah, 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 right? But that's not persuasive at all, right? What I try to do here is give you a bit of tips for your family and how you can deal with them. Sitting around with never Trumpers and anti-MAGA people and people who are just still stuck in this system, it ain't going to persuade them, right? What will persuade them is make them explain to you what the Russia collusion was. Just explain it to me. What happened? I didn't hear. I didn't hear about it, right? Oh, what? Let them explain it to you, right? Let them explain the Hunter Biden laptop story to you. And then just ask simple questions, right? And they'll fall apart. They'll fall apart. I had this at work the other day. Someone had a bad idea. You want to know if you're at work and you want to get a bad idea out of the way that you don't want to deal with? Right, here's how you do it. Write it down. Explain to me what I need to do. Just write it down, and once it's written down, I'll think about it. Right? Then I'll understand it better. But the minute someone has to write down a stupid idea, they'll know it's stupid. It's easier to say a stupid idea out loud than it is to write it down. And it's in the same way that if you're arguing something with someone and you're just going like the global warming debate, right? Oh, you don't understand science. No, you don't understand science. No, this is what science is, right? It doesn't get anywhere at all, right? So what you do is you just say, oh, I didn't hear about that, right? What happened? And make them explain it, right? They won't be able to. Now, this voting thing, I mean, we don't know. We just don't know, right? Now, I wouldn't hire Dominion to run my elections, right? Like at all. And were the machines corrupted? I bet they were. I mean, I bet they were. What we saw in Arizona was the machines were corrupted. Right? I would bet money on them being corrupted, but I'm not going to argue it with people because I don't know. I just don't know. I know what they did with the Hunter Biden laptop thing, and I know Russia collusion was a big fake story. So that's enough to persuade people the election was interfered with. You don't need to go further than that. And the only reason I even bring up the gerrymandering is for my own explanation so that I don't bother arguing things that I don't really care about and have no stakes. There's no stakes in getting that argument right? None. Yeah. COVID ended the primaries and allowed them to crown Biden. That's exactly what happened. Yes. So it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter how the actual voting went down. It was not credible. But because it wasn't credible, yeah, Joe Biden could have won the lack of credibility system, right? With a bad system, he could win. For sure. He couldn't have won on a one-day paper ballot system. Then he would never have won that election. Not even close. Even with the Hunter Biden cheating and the laptop and all that. So there definitely was ballot harvesting. They made ballot harvesting legal. And whether the machines were complicit in this and the Dominion things, my bet is probably, but I don't, like I said, you couldn't say that out loud. You can now is what I understand, but you couldn't say that out loud on YouTube. So I had to train myself to talk about this stuff other ways. And now I just don't even care, right? I don't care. And even Trump, I mean, he should not go on about the 2020 stuff the way he does, right? He should just say, I'm going to make the next ones clean. This can't be about, Trump's ego and all this stuff. That's the bad side of Trump, as much as I love the guy. I'd rather what RFK is talking about here, right? Changing the job of the president, which Trump did very well. All right, team, that's all I got for today. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Hope you have a great day. I hope, get some good prices on Bitcoin today. That would be awesome.